What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. This time around, a review roundup. It's been quite some time, and if you're watching this and you're new to the channel and you're wondering what the hell is a review roundup, well, essentially I'm going to take a few different things that I want to cover here on the channel and just cover it all in one video in a shorter format. A couple of these things I've already covered in a bit of a longer format on other people's channels, and I will link to those down below and let you know where you can find all that. But yeah, this is just kind of a way for me to cover movies that are maybe a little bit older, that I'm not doing a whole full series on or a whole full video on. I feel like during the pandemic era, I had way more time to do all of this. And nowadays, with a lot of the new releases and things like Shudder sending me their early films, or just trying to do other random videos from time to time, which lately has just been mainly movie reviews, I kind of feel like a lot of the older movie reviews for random things or TV shows have kind of been put to the wayside. I've had notes written down for a bunch of different shows and movies that I've watched from the olden days that I've wanted to cover here on the channel, and I just haven't had the time to. So I'm cramming a few of them here together. Let's get into this, my review roundup, a quicker, more condensed version of my movie reviews for all these movies. Let's start off with Inception, written and directed by Christopher Nolan and starring a completely insane cast like people like Leonardo DiCaprio, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Elliot Page, Tom Hardy, and the list goes on and on and on. This movie came out back in 2010, and man, this is just such a good time. I revisited it not too long ago because my fiance hadn't seen the movie fully. She had seen clips here and there and knew what the basic premise was, but she hadn't seen the whole movie. So it was such an amazing time to go back and revisit this film. Christopher Nolan is a phenomenal director, and I think, what can I even add to a review for this that hasn't already been said? This movie is a visual spectacle with top-tier performances, and it's a really heady movie, something that makes you think. It's one of those movies that allows you to think as you're leaving the theater. I remember the conversations leaving the theater after the movie was playing, and it's a movie that even to this day, if you show it to somebody, it's still going to be a conversation starter, specifically with its ending that leaves you with a question on whether or not that little thing had ended up toppling over or continued to spin. Are we still in a dream, or are we not in a dream? Really love this movie. Such a good time. Again, a visual spectacle with a really great foundation in terms of its dialogue and its lore. And even though sometimes I think it can get a little bit pretentious, I do find this to be an enjoyable film, and definitely one of my favorite films from the Christopher Nolan filmography. Now jumping to a movie from 1986 that I covered over on Rashaji Review's channel, The Fly, directed by David Cronenberg and starring people like Jeff Goldblum, John Gatz, Geena Davis, and many others. This is a movie about a man who wants to learn how to do teleportation and ends up becoming a fly when he jumps into one side that was going to teleport him to the other side of the machine, and a fly gets in there as well, mending their DNA, and over the course of the movie, he becomes a creature, becomes a monster, to the point where he's a full-on human-sized fly. This is a movie that in so many ways is just so goofy in its premise, but what really sells this movie is the direction given by Cronenberg. I really love the look and feel of this movie, and you got Jeff Goldblum giving a phenomenal performance from beginning to end. He goes from being this very likable character to a character that you start to be wary of, and a character that you just kind of see his demise and downfall as he becomes this monster over the course of the film. I think that Cronenberg does such a great job of directing this film. The dialogue is really solid. There are a couple of moments in this film where it is a little bit slow, but I think that the overall movie in general is an entertaining watch, and come on, those practical effects are some of the best we've ever seen in any movie. Moving on now to something that's not a movie, and I actually was gonna do a full-blown live stream about this. I was gonna do a long-form audio only review about this, but I just kind of kept getting pushed off, and I finally want to talk about it, and that is Merlin, that ran from 2008 to 2012. It's a series that was on the BBC, starring some fantastic people like John Hurt, Colin Morgan, Katie McGrath, Bradley James, Richard Wilson, Angel Colby, and the list goes on and on. And what makes Merlin so awesome is that they take the basic storyline of, Arthur, the guy who would pull the sword from the stone and has the wise wizard Merlin with him all the time. It takes that story and does something super different with it, where this time around we're focusing on a young Merlin, who in this story is not an old man. He's not the old wise wizard, and he kind of has to learn to be wise over the course of this show. He ends up coming to Camelot to work under a man named Gaius, who is the lead physician for Camelot overall and is a very trusted individual when it comes to the royal family of Camelot. And he works under him kind of like as his lackey, as his apprentice. But Gaius is the only one in the entirety of Camelot that knows that Merlin has magic. And we live in this world now where magic is being banned, and there's a lot of prejudice towards people with magic. And of course, there are those who use magic in the wrong ways, which completely villainizes anybody else who tries to use magic. Overall, this is a really cheesy, over-the-top show that's just charming. I really thoroughly enjoy it. It was my second time rewatching this, and it was the first time for my buddy the Big Rob Theory and for my fiance Haley. They really enjoyed the show, and I will say my biggest gripes really come with the very end of the show, because they were supposed to do another season and it ended up kind of getting cut short, so the writers had to kind of rush an ending with their final season. And I won't lie when I say that the finale of the show is lackluster compared to everything else. With that said, I feel the journey is so worth it. And outside of that, the other gripes would be that this is a very cheesy show in a time where TV shows were not getting a whole lot of budget. If you're watching things like Game of Thrones or the upcoming Lord of the Rings show on Amazon, you're looking at fantasy television shows that have a budget that is exponential next to TV shows of this size at this time. This is a show that definitely feels a lot like Doctor Who when it comes to its very cheesy, over-the-top antics, its dialogue. The look and feel of the show is very TV, and the special effects feel like very corny, very serialized television, old school stuff. If you've ever seen Doctor Who, I feel like this is a show that is very similar to Doctor Who in its tone. So if you know what I mean about the cheesy effects but still being able to enjoy the story, then you know what I mean when it comes to Merlin. Overall, a great time and a show that I always have a lot of fun watching. I really enjoy kind of flipping things on its head and having a young Merlin alongside a young Arthur, and them kind of building this friendship over the course of the show that starts to become a little bit more familiar with what we expect from the Merlin and Arthur relationship from the many iterations of this story that we have seen before. And then lastly, I want to talk about a film directed by David Fincher, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the American version. There has been multiple other versions that were made and based on the books. I believe they're Swedish, if I'm not mistaken. And this film came out in 2011, directed by David Fincher, as I mentioned, and stars people like Daniel Craig, Rooney Mara, Christopher Plummer, Stellan Skarsgård, and so many others. And I actually covered this over on Chad Sabrin's channel. I'll leave a link down below. I remember going to see this movie in theaters 3 times when it originally came out because I was just so blown away about how good this film looks. There's something about this film that's just so well directed. It captures so much about the really creepy elements of things that have to go on in this movie. There's a murder mystery kind of thing going on here while also having, 2 lead characters. And I think that this film overall balances it really well. I think that Rooney Mara is fantastic in this movie. This is probably my favorite performance from her. And she has a lot of weight on her shoulders in terms of carrying this story and telling this character's story. Her relationship with Daniel Craig's character over the course of the film is rather heartbreaking, and Daniel Craig's character is so well acted and so intriguing over the course of the film, but he's also a character you don't always know how to fully feel about. And that's something I really enjoy about this film. You don't always know how to feel about all the characters, and I think that it balances you enjoying them and also being wary of them on different levels, and I think that it does a really good job with that. And Rooney Mara specifically is the character you probably feel for the most. I will say, as I said in my review for Chad Sabrin's, this is a trigger warning. There is rape that happens in this film around Rooney Mara's character, and even though, she gets her, revenge later on, it is a rough scene to watch. Rooney Mara gives a phenomenal performance, and there's a lot about this movie that is uncomfortable to watch. So I do commend David Fincher and the rest of the cast for really committing to something that tells a real story, that deals with some heavy themes, but ultimately they didn't shy away from that, and they did it in a great way while also, giving us some, some victory for some of these characters at time, while also telling a very serious and grounded story. It's hard to get into the nitty-gritty without getting into all the spoilers, and I could do a spoiler video if you guys are interested in any of these. I could do another video on these if anybody wants something that's expanded upon on all these titles that I just touched on. But as far as this movie, I think this is a movie that if you've never seen it before, go in blind. This is a movie that has a lot of layers and has a really interesting story that unfolds by the time you get to the end of it. Overall, this is an entertaining time, and overall, I had a lot of fun covering all of these. So if you guys enjoyed the video, please, I want to invite you to hit that like button. It really helps the channel out. Also comment your thoughts. Which of these is your favorite? Or just leave me a comment down below on what you thought of these individually. Inception, Merlin, The Fly, and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I know these are all very random things to cover, but like I mentioned, I just feel like nowadays with all the new releases and work and life and, just things going on in my own personal life and, covering new movies and old movies and movies that I get to check out a little bit early, I don't always have the time to do a singular video video for every single older movie that I'd like to cover here on the channel. And don't worry, there's still gonna be plenty of retro or nostalgic films to cover here on the channel. But yeah, you know, this is kind of a fun and easy way to kind of cover a couple things all at once and just kind of put it out to you guys and see what you guys have to say. So a big thanks to you guys for watching. Please hit that like button, comment your thoughts, subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.